This lesson is all about closing up the pockets on the Julia cardigan. All you need for this is a tapestry needle, some extra yarn, the same yarn as your cardigan, and a pair of scissors. I like a tapestry needle that has fairly big eyes so it's easy to get the yarn through. You can find this at any craft store. So to start out, I'm going to weave in this end through the purl bumps just a few times just to bury this end. I'm just gonna pull it through. Let's see if I can. And I have another video that shows how to weave in the ends a little bit better, but I'm just gonna get it started. Do a few more diagonals. This is just so you don't have to tie knots. Okay, I'm gonna get it back to this hole. Okay, so you can see that little gap and where it meets. And all you're gonna do is kind of pinch it together. And I'm gonna run my needle just through the purl bumps on the side. And you pull it tight, but not too tight. And through these little bars, just like that. And then I'm just gonna go back and forth, up and down the pocket. This doesn't really need to be structurally sound like a pocket on a real coat or cardigan because it's mostly for decoration. You're not really gonna use it. They're not gonna put their hands in it. So I'm just gonna go back and forth until I get to the end. Okay, here we are at the end. And I'm gonna use the same piece of yarn and get to the other side. And it doesn't really matter where you weave this through. I'm gonna do it on the back side of the pocket that you wouldn't see from the inside. And I'm just gonna run it through the purl bumps just like I did before, just to get it to the other side. And then I'm gonna sew up the other side just like I did the first side. Now that's thread through and I kind of pull it a little bit. That way when I wash and block it, it doesn't pucker. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing on this side. There's lots of other ways you could do this stitch. You could wrap it around and pull it through. You could do a back stitch like you do with hand sewing with garments. Just whatever you feel comfortable with. It doesn't really matter. Okay, now I'm getting back up to this hole again and I wanna close that up. And we're gonna check it from the front side. I'm just going to a few stitches, get it through that purl bump, that, and then I just kind of get my hand under and check it. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna look at it from the front side. So here's the front of the pocket. You can see that stitch is kind of a little bit pulled. The embroidery hides a lot of it. It's just kind of the nature of this type of pockets, but 100% wool hides this really well. And we can go back in and fix it a little bit. So I'm going to come back to the back side. I'm gonna find those spots and just kind of keep my hand under there. And I'm just gonna take the yarn and go through the purl bumps on the back in a diagonal pattern just to close up that little gap. You want a really sharp needle for this. It just makes it a lot easier to manage. Okay, let's check now. Yeah, that looks better. There's still that one little piece, and you know what? That is from when we started the pocket where we knit those stitches off. It just gets a little bit of a gap. But I bet I could go in, kind of tighten that stitch a little bit. You can do however much or however little you want, whatever's gonna bother you. So once I've got this sewn up and I'm happy with it, I'm going to, again, weave these ends through the purl bumps in a diagonal pattern. And keep in mind, you're gonna have embroidery on the back side of this right here. This is the top back of the pocket. So when I weave these ends in, I kind of want to do it out and away or down. Don't necessarily want more thickness where that embroidery is gonna go. Just up through the purl bumps a few times. 100% wool. You don't have to get too crazy with it. It's not really gonna go anywhere. One of my other samples I knit in a cotton rayon blend, and it's wonderful. It just is a little bit more slippery, so I weave the ends in with a little more care. So that's what it looks like, and I'm gonna just trim off this end. I'm not gonna cut it too close because I still have to wash and block it, and it's gonna stretch out a little bit. So that's what it looks like from the back side. The pocket's all sewn up. From the front, or the right side, you can see there's still that little bump. I'll go back in and fix that later, and I'll show you how. I'm just gonna kind of tug at it from the back side, or maybe do some duplicate stitches over it to hide it. And then this one we'll go and do next, but it just gives it a really nice, neat little finish. And then we can go back in and do the embroidery right here if we want to.